Hello, everyone. I'm Cameron Glenn. This is my FAK's um, recording and interview. And I know, Professor, that I said that I was going to interview my dad, who was a businessman at Teledyne ISCO, but he directed me to Kim Swanson here, who's the president and owner of Swanson Interiors Incorporated, which is an interior design business, who's agreed to do the interview for today. So, with that, I'll get started on the interview. Are you ready, Mrs.
Yes,
Swanson? All right.
yes.
So, first question: Where or what country have you been doing business in outside of the United States?
Okay. Well, I practice high-end residential interior design, and I specialize in new construction and major remodeling, both in the United States and Mexico.
Okay. And what is the nature of your business out in that country that you've done with? I think you just explained that right there. So, you got
So,
something?
yeah. Well, what was the nature of your business in that country? I can tell you specifically.
Okay.
Okay, so what I'm going to refer to in this interview is just the last job that I did in Mexico.
All right.
And so basically, specifically, I was hired by a client who is in the United States for the interior design and the project management for their new construction residential home that was being built in southern Mexico.
Okay.
I also was supposed to provide product purchasing, procurement, and the export and install of all their interior and exterior furnishings. So that's the was the specific nature of just this last job.
Okay, so was there anything special that you noticed about the business practices down there? So, what would you say was different about the business culture in Mexico compared to the United States then, while you were there?
Well, that's a great question. First and foremost, first
Sorry
and
there.
foremost would be the language. Um, so, in order for us to have effective communication on the job, I knew that I would need an employee that was bilingual, fluent in Spanish. So not only would this employee act as a translator for me because I don't speak Spanish, um, but they could translate for myself when I was with the contractor, who I would be doing, business with very readily on the site, in Zoom meetings, whatever it was. But also, I needed that person to be able to be very fluent because I needed to be able to read Spanish, write Spanish because of emails, specification information, and floor plans. In other words, if we're sending emails, we need to send them we usually send them in English, but if they don't know, they usually didn't, not everyone was translating. So she would have to spend them and write them, in Spanish. So that was really a big difference. I was able to hire a terrific employee in my Southern California office who worked side by side with me um, just in this process of being a go-between between myself and who I was working. So that would be maybe the first difference. Secondly, I would say that maybe the procedures on and timeline on the construction and on our work takes much longer in Mexico than in the U.S. So, in other words, let's say that when you start a construction job, you have to get a permit. In the U.S., that permit can take 2 to 4 weeks. I mean, 4 weeks is a long time,
Mm-hmm.
but down there, it could take as much as 4 months to 6 months. So, that is a much longer process. And then often our deadlines, which we think as business people in the U.S., our deadlines are that's when you got to have it done, right? Well, there it's kind of a target date, and it's all kind of flexible. So how this affected me when I negotiated my contract with my client in the US, I would typically negotiate something that was between maybe 12 months, 14, 16 months max in the US. But I knew because of the timing in Mexico took a lot longer. So I needed to negotiate that contract for 24 months. But also I needed to put a clause in that contract that if we were to go beyond that 24 months, then we needed to renegotiate that in case that job went further. So those are two big differences. Now, you asked me about similarities as well.
Yes. What similarities in terms of the business culture down there in Mexico are there in
Okay,
the United States as well? How would you compare them?
so I would say uh, for me in my business, the similarities were that the players or the people, um, meaning in my work, the players would be like your contractor, your project manager, your subcontractor, um, the people, that I would work with, very much the same. The very much the same group in Mexico as it is here in the U.S. So that was a very similar. The process of which new construction goes in the U.S., meaning, to explain it to you, I guess, first you get a set of plans, then you get a permit. That's first. Then they go and they excavate the site. Then they pour the foundation,
Hmm.
rough in the utilities. Then the walls go up on the house, and so forth and so on. So the process in Mexico very similar to how it is here, in the U.S.
In
So
terms of
so the
like
plan
constructing a house and then building up the interior, which is what your field is about.
right, and so the players and the process in Mexico very similar. But I still would want to reiterate that there's a big difference in time and how long it would take to complete a project. The time is much slower, the construction time in Mexico versus the US. And I think part of the reason that the it takes so long is because Mexico has low labor costs. And then they also have a high demand for qualified workers. So in terms of construction, and the reason is because they don't only have workers for residential, but they also use those same construction workers for commercial.
Hmm.
So in other words, if they're working on my client's home, and all of a sudden this big Hyatt hotel is going up, and they're saying, hey, we'll offer you $2 more an hour, then they're going to pull off my job and run over to the other job and do that. So we found that pretty often, and so it would take a lot longer to get your job done.
I see. And what you just said here kind of goes into the next question I was going to ask is what would you say is a driving force in terms of the differences between the Mexican business culture and the American business culture? I think you did a good job answering that there. But if you would have to say, like, which part of it is most important, which one
Well,
stands out the most?
yeah, I'm going to tell you one that stands out, and it's very important.
All right.
One driving factor um, in Mexico, and this is going to sound kind of odd, is family.
Hmm.
So family is a very important part of Mexico's society. And that traditional hierarchical family structure carries over into business, meaning rank, seniority, and authority are very respected. And Mexicans pay very close attention how each person fits into the hierarchy in business, just like they do in families, because that's just their kind of DNA. So
Okay.
a good example would be if there was let's say we were going to have a meeting, maybe it was down there on site with the general contractor. It would be utmost important for me to be there because I would be the executive of equal rank to that general contractor. And so that would show respect to their culture.
Okay.
So in other words, it's more important for me to be there than, let's just say, I couldn't, so I sent my assistant. Well, that's not super respectful when that hierarchical structure is very important to them.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to cut it off here because we only got about 5 minutes left here. So the second part of that question, and let's try to be a little bit brief about this, is how did that family structure affect your business then?
Well, it was very, let me just skip, okay? It was very important. I had to make a conscious effort to be very professional in order to prove my knowledge, my expertise, and my experience in that field. Because also part of it is in Mexico, it's a very male dominated um, culture in terms of positions of power and especially in construction. So, simple terms, I had to present myself and my team as equal and be very professional so that they knew I understood my way around a construction.
All right, moving on. 1 second. Okay.
I think we're down to the last question. Is there
Yeah.
anything else?
Yep. All I have left here is there anything else you would like to add that you think is important to understanding the business culture in Mexico and conducting business down there as opposed to the United States?
The only thing I would add to you, obviously, if you're a business student or a math student, is just to sum it up this way. It's important no matter what country you're doing business is to one, first of all, understand if you need, their language. I mean, do you need an interpreter? Do you not need an interpreter?
Okay.
Understand, do a little research, understand their cultures and their customs and how their values and how that relates to your business. And then lastly, to understand their productivity and how will that affect your business financially or otherwise in doing business with them.
Just like with how family affected your ability to work with your workers or with
Right.
the licensing and just basic construction time it takes with licensing and all that.
Right, and with just like I said, having to negotiate a longer contract.
Mm-hmm.
With my client, we had to have some flexibility because of their productivity being lower than ours.
All right. Is there anything else?
I don't think so. I appreciate very much being asked to do this interview and enjoyed it, and I'm glad you gave me a heads up on the questions, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Swanson, for taking part in this interview today. And for people who watch this video, this is a Zoom meeting, in case you can't tell. And thank you once again, Mrs. Swanson, for taking your time to help me with this interview today. And I wish you a good day.
Yes, thank you, Camden.